Hey, we're back again. What's up? This is Digital Drive, and I'm your host, Russell. 32 minutes past the hour now. So if you're late for work, you better get going. 32 minutes past the hour. What's the temperature? I don't even know. Who cares? 84.4 degrees right now. It's really heating up. It's supposed to get kind of hot today. Fortunately, though, the forecast says there's not much of a chance of rain. Some spotty showers here and there. On Friday, though, there is a chance of a thunderstorm. Same goes for Saturday, so our weekend looks kind of wet and hot. So hot and wet for our weekend, of course. What else is new? Don't forget to tweet us, Hot News at Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter, at Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter, and don't forget to go to our website, hotnewstalkradio.com. That's hotnewstalkradio.com. Again, hotnewstalkradio.com. You can call into the show, 423-800-8949, if you have anything at all to say, 423-800-8949. Taking your tech questions, too. Having a problem with your computer, your phone, your internet provider, who knows, 423-800-8949. Taking your calls right now. So, here in the news, we've got, yet again, another story from the Supreme Court where they just can't seem to do anything right. They've determined that a service that provides TV stuff over the internet is, in fact, illegal. So you rent an antenna, by the way, from this company called Arrow, and then that sends the TV signal to you over the internet. But no, sorry, you can't watch that because the Supreme Court has determined you can't do that, thus killing a business. Thanks. When read in light of its purpose, the 1976 Copyright Act is unmistakable. An entity that engages in activities like Arrow's platforms, wrote Breyer, is in fact illegal. Arrow argued that it was simply renting equipment to customers. Each customer had their own dime-sized antenna and their own DVR storage space. The six-justice majority believed that Congress specifically ruled out such an argument. Before cable was widespread, community antenna television systems, or simply rebroadcast programs into areas with poor reception, were found legal by the Supreme Court. When Congress amended the copyright law in 1976, though, it was made clear that the community antenna systems were having a public performance because they show the program's images and make audible the program's sounds. So yet again, they're making copyright law stupid. Or rather, copyright law is already kind of stupid, so they're just reiterating how stupid copyright law is. I mean, there's so many different interpretations that they're using for the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, that are just so ridiculous. And it's like, oh, you might possibly have linked to a website that has copyrighted content on it from your website, so your website is now in violation. It's so dumb. So dumb. What do you think about copyright law? 423-800-8949. That's 423-800-8949. And on Twitter, at Hot News Talk Radio. That's at Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Copyright law has just gotten out of hand, and they're making a huge deal out of things that aren't even a big deal. Torrenting, for example, music, so-called piracy. You downloaded a movie, that's going to be $500,000 fine. It's so silly. They're overblowing something that's not even close to a big deal. 423-800-8949 and Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter and hotnewstalkradio.com for your listening pleasure. You can go to that website and check us out, and in fact you can listen to us live streaming. It sounds great. And on tuninradio.com you can search for WSDT, which is us yet again, or go to the TuneIn app on your smartphone, be it an iPhone or an Android or I think even a BlackBerry. Tune in and then search for WSDT and you'll find us. Arrow was a small startup company launched in 2012, and it was sued by the TV broadcaster shortly thereafter. Arrow generally won in the lower courts, including a major victory in the U.S. Court of Appeals in the Second Circuit, the only appeals court that considered the case. After the Supreme Court agreed to hear the case, a Utah federal judge banned Arrow from 6 states, forcing it to shut down in 2 cities in which it was already operating. The company's CEO, Chet Kanyoja, said the idea that in 1976 Congress intended to require payment for all transmissions is absolutely a false narrative. Still, it appears to be one accepted by a majority of the High Court. So basically they're saying that you have to pay money somehow for every broadcast you see. And now they're just being stupid. So, hooray. But it gets worse. Lots of tech companies rushed to Arrow's side, saying that if the company lost, it would endanger cloud computing services more generally. The legal precedent that Arrow relied on was the 2008 Cablevision case, which legalized DVR services in the cloud. That decision was widely in the tech sector as one legitimized cloud services. So this was sort of a court ruling that made cloud services super legit in the eyes of the law. So now, with Arrow stepping into public performance territory by sending a signal transmission to a single user, how hard would it be for a copyright holder to argue that a storage service like Google, Dropbox, or Amazon is doing the same when a user accesses her own content or his own content? In the fourth section of the opinion, Breyer tries to allay these fears, saying that the holding today is really about applying the transmit clause to cable companies and their equivalents. Congress did not intend to encourage or control the emergence or use of different kinds of technologies, except in this case for some reason. And today's decision will alter that, he insists, using language that will likely be a cold comfort to cloud services. He explains that today's decision is really just about broadcast television, and he's talking out his butt, basically. Welcome to the Supreme Court, where that's all they ever do. I just cannot stand the Supreme Court sometimes. I mean, they make these good decisions like they did with the privacy case with the cell phones, and then turn right around and do something dumb like that. This could have been revolutionary, and probably would have killed cable companies as we know them, by the way. If this company can give us internet service for cheap, or rather, cable service for cheap from the internet, that would have absolutely destroyed cable companies, and I think that's a good thing, honestly. But oh no, can't have that. Because I can't stand cable companies, by the way. They're just so bad, and their whole idea is totally outdated too when you think about it. I mean, why would I wait for a specific time to watch a TV show? I like the way Netflix does it, where they just release a whole season in one go. Because you know they can. They film a season just straight and then release it in increments. It makes for no reason at all to wait for content. Why would I wait for content other than to wait for the new season to come out and then just watch it in a marathon, which is what most people do. In fact, most people I know will actually wait for a series to be over and then watch the whole thing in one go. That's what I do 9 times out of 10. If I want to watch a series, I wait for it to be finished and then I just sit down and watch the whole thing, you know, on Netflix or Hulu or HBO Go or AMC or whatever else is there. The only exception I can think of right now is *Halt and Catch Fire*, just because I'm sort of hooked on it. I'm following the series. But other than that, there is simply no reason to have a cable subscription for TV. And I would argue that about a lot of things. The internet has killed the need for a lot of services. I would argue, like, even, hate to say it, newspapers, books even, in some cases. Why would I buy books in physical form when I can just get an ebook that never goes away, right? If I lose it, I can just re-download it. If somehow my data gets corrupted, I just re-download it. There's no losing the ebook. If it gets burned or damaged or whatever, I just get a new one. It's silly. It's really silly. Cable companies, what are you gonna do? They never make good decisions. Well, here's a more fun topic. Virtual reality. I love the idea of virtual reality. I think it's great. Oculus is buying the design firm behind the Xbox 360 controller, though, which is an interesting decision by them. Of course, the design of the 360 controller, I would argue, was the better of the three, because you had the PS4 controller, PS3, I should say, controller, which was not my favorite, and then there was that other one, the Wii controller, which was definitely the worst out of the three, I would say. 361 just sort of fit in the hand well. I liked it. And now this company is Oculus, or actually I guess Facebook when you think about it, is buying the company that designed it, Carbon Design Group. According to Ars Technica, as Oculus continues its long grind from early prototype to refined developer kit to eventual consumer product, the company has spent a small portion of its Facebook billions to acquire Seattle's Carbon Design Group. Gamers may not know Carbon by name, but they probably know the design house's work on the ubiquitous Xbox 360 gamepad, which has become the de facto standard for many PC gamers. In addition to Xbox owners, Carbon also did engineering work on the casing and mechanical design behind the original Kinect, unfortunately, and worked on the twistable transforming hybrid D-pad on that Microsoft introduced to as controllers in 2010. Outside of gaming, the company has worked on the design of everything from computer mice to touchless faucets to patio door handles. So the fact that they've been, well, bought basically altogether by Oculus is an interesting decision by them because they are a huge firm, and because they've been bought by Oculus, that means that Oculus now has an extra income stream because this company does do a lot of work. So now they have some extra added income, which is good for them. In announcing the acquisition today, Oculus said that it has been working with Carbon for nearly a year on multiple unannounced projects. Carbon's nearly 40 employees will continue to work out of their Seattle offices and in conjunction with the existing Oculus R&D group out of nearby Redmond. From a design and engineering perspective, building the products that finally deliver consumer virtual reality, I should say, is one of the most interesting and challenging problem sets ever, Carbon creative director Peter Bristol wrote. So virtual reality is, of course, heading to the mainstream, if it's not already there, pretty fast, pretty quickly, and pretty soon, I would say, wow, not even 3-5 years, we'll see this in probably every household, which I think is pretty cool, and I have no problem with it, but I know a lot of older people seem to think that it's a huge deal, but whatever. On its face, this seems like a smart acquisition by the newly cash-rich Oculus, making the final consumer version of the Rift headset as sleek and comfortable as possible is going to be an important part of getting potential users over the hump of strapping a VR monitor to their face. Of course, this is a transitional period, again, between blurring the line between what's real and what's virtual. As I think augmented reality is going to be more mainstream just because it's more accessible. Everyone has a smartphone, so they already have a augmented reality capable device already. In fact, they probably use it whether they know it or not. So that's what's really going to blur the line between what's real and what's not, and eventually it'll just become indiscernible as graphics and processors get better. Sony's Project Morpheus prototypes have a slightly more breathable design though, attaching via a headband and a visor that lowers down in front of the eyes, but there's definitely still work to be done on making the new round of VR devices as comfortable as possible, and that's the problem. That's what killed the Virtual Boy, besides the fact that it looked horrible, was the fact that it wasn't comfortable to use, and it was really, really expensive. So price and comfort are going to be the two factors that determine whether or not people are going to buy these new virtual reality headsets. That's what's really going to come down to. It can be as impressive as all get out, but if it's not comfortable or price what's the word? If it's not able to be conceived in my pocketbook, we'll say, then it's simply not going to happen. Then again, maybe Carbon's experience with controllers will come into play in some sort of integrated first-party control solution being developed by Oculus itself. In a March interview with Ars, Oculus founder Palmer Luckey dodged a question about Oculus-made VR controls, but said that successful VR will need devices that are inputs and outputs. So a device, maybe even a full-body controller, a shirt of some sort, a vest, I don't know, something that attaches to the body to help out with the whole controller input-output thing. In an Ars interview earlier this month, Oculus CEO Brendan Erb said that while the first consumer version of the Rift is pretty locked in already, hardware-wise, the new resources provided by Facebook will allow us to make consumer V2 totally incredible a year or two later. He also expressed hope that Oculus will be able to sell the Rift at a price as close to cost as possible. So probably they're going to make money off of licensing and software sales, that sort of thing. And the fact that they're wanting to sell it very close to cost is a good sign, because really they don't need that much income because they've been bought by Facebook. So it's not like they're bleeding cash already or anything like that. What do you think about virtual reality and blurring the line between what's real and what's not real? But again, what determines what's real and what's not real? If it's if you perceive it to be real, then isn't it? You know, what's the difference really? If you see it and feel it and it's there to you, then it's real, isn't it? That's sort of how it is. If you can't tell the difference, then it's there. Whether that's how people are going to see it or not, that's just sort of how it is. If I can fool you into believing that it is, then it is to you. Thus, it's real in your perspective. Weird, right? What do you think about all this? 423-800-8949 or Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. 423-800-8949. And hotnewstalkradio.com is the website, of course, to get all of your info straight from the web if you want to listen to our site. In fact, We like you guys so much that we added in a Google search bar. So you can search Google straight from your website, or our website, I should say, hawknewstalkradio.com. Right there for you. Also, tune in on your smartphone. The TuneIn app is your source for listening to us on your smartphone. Just search for WSDT, which happens to be our call letters here in the Chattanooga area, WSDT, and you'll be able to listen to us on your smartphone in high quality, high fidelity. Sounds as good as it sounds in my headphones right now, which is pretty dang good, I gotta say. And those of you listening in South Pittsburgh and Dunlap, what's up, everybody? 9, 10, and 11:90 a.m. respectively. What's going on? This is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. We're talking about technology and virtual reality and all those fun topics. And the European Union, in their infinite wisdom, has to decide on whether or not the Apple Beats deal is okay. It has to get a European Union decision by July 30th. The European Commission told reporters on Wednesday, according to CNET, that it could give the deal the go-ahead, or as far as launching a drawn-out investigation over competition issues. But if there's no sort of problem going on in the States, why would the European Union have a problem with them? And furthermore, what could they possibly do about it? They can't stop them from the acquisition. These are two American companies that are buying each other, or one is buying the other. So what's the European Union have to say about it? Nothing, I would think. The European Union's competition watchdog, the European Commission, will make a decision on Apple's $3 billion deal to buy Beats by the end of the month. The Commission announced the news Wednesday, saying that while it could clear the deal with no concessions, it reserves the right to launch an in-depth investigation into the agreement to deal with any competitive issues that might result from the acquisition. But again, that's Europe, and these are two American companies. What could they possibly do? Late last month, Apple announced plans to acquire Beats for $3 billion. Apple has been cryptic about its plans, but seems to be most interested in the Beats music streaming service. While Apple already has a music streaming service in iTunes Radio, but who's ever heard of that really, the pending acquisition suggests that Apple sees greater potential by folding Beats music into its lineup and plus killing competition, possibly. But nevertheless, Beats does have some patents and a deal with AT&T, which is what Apple uses for the most part for their carrier, so it makes sense from an iPhone perspective. The European Commission is just one of several governmental bodies that need to approve the Apple deal, including U.S. regulators, who will also examine whether it possesses any anti-competitive concerns. That seems unlikely given the sheer amount of competition in music streaming today and the small sliver occupied by Beats Music in the space owned by Pandora and Spotify, because honestly, probably nobody was going to sign up for Beats Music anyway. It's a pay service. Why would you pay up? Why would you pay for music in the 21st century? What's the deal with that? Unless you're buying a record, why would you pay for music? I mean, come on. 21st century, man. Nobody pays for music. That's crazy. Or rather, they don't realize they're paying for music because there's ads and stuff. Or they just pirate it, which most artists don't care about anyway. That's the thing people don't get. Most artists don't get their money from selling their music. They get it from concerts. Most of their income comes from that. The rest of it goes straight to the label because they're greedy. In addition to streaming music, Apple would get its hands on Beats' popular headphones. Apple's brand has arguably lost some of its coolness factor over the last few years, mostly because it's lame, while Beats, riding the success of its headphones, has become a pop culture phenomenon among people who like to spend way too much money on headphones that don't sound that great. Yeah, I added that bit in. I don't understand why people buy Beats headphones. Sure, they may look cool, sort of. It looks like you're wearing Jordy's visor on top of your head, but whatever. Beats headphones, I don't get it. I don't get the hype. They don't sound that great. I've tried them. They don't sound that amazing. It's just they cranked up the bass way too high, and that's it. That's Beats. Oh, and you can also get wireless Beats. Isn't that great? Honestly, get yourself a pair of Sony MDRs, and you'll be set for the rest of your life. Those things sound amazing. Sony MDRs. Or even a Monoprice set of headphones. Monoprice is an okay brand. I got mine for like $30, and that's what I use for listening to music. Sounds great. I can't complain. I'm sure there are better headphones out there for $200, but for $30, the Monoprice ones, you can't really argue with that. So there's a lot of alternatives to Beats which don't cost an arm and a leg, or the price of a used car, which actually you could buy a used car for what you would pay for Beats, by the way. You actually could. Or a scooter. Like, think about this. It comes down to, am I going to buy a pair of headphones or am I going to buy a scooter? You could actually buy the scooter instead of the headphones, believe it or not. You could buy a TV for the price of these headphones. You know, the possibilities are endless, almost. You could invest in a small company for the price that you pay for the Beats headphones. I don't get it, man. Why would you pay that much? What do you think about Beats? Are they completely useless, or do you actually like Beats, and can you possibly explain why they're a good thing to have? You can tweet us, Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. That's Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter, or call in. There's only a few minutes left to do so, but you can call in, 423-800-8949. I'm sure there's somebody out there clutching his Beats headphones to his chest and seething in anger about how I'm dissing his precious headphones. Whatever. 423-800-8949. They're really crappy. 423-800-8949. Oh, Beats and Beats music, which somehow Dr. Dre has influence over. I wonder if the Beats headphones would have sold any or as well or even better if Dr. Dre didn't have his name attached to them, right? I mean, the whole thing was Beats by Dre. Like, you can't say Beats headphones without attaching by Dre on them. And Dre is kind of, culturally, I didn't even know he was relevant that much. He put out his last album in, like, what, 94 with The Chronic, which was arguably kind of an okay album, but still, you know, it's Dr. Dre, and it's not the 90s anymore, or the 80s. NWA broke up. Like, what are you gonna do? I don't know. I don't get it. Culture's weird. This is why I failed social studies. Culture's weird. Actually, I never took social studies, so the joke's on you. Yeah, 423-800-8949, and of course, hotnewstalkradio.com and Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. CNET contacted Apple for comment on the EU approval date, and we'll update the story when I give more info. And of course, you can not count on us or depend on us, but you can always look here at Hot News Talk Radio to give you updates on all the latest tech news, because that's what I'm here for. Oh, Beats. Real quickly now, Sharp has entered the 4K fray, for real this time. Up until now, Sharp had one 4K TV and a bunch of pseudo 4K models known as Quatron Plus. Now the company has announced a pair of two TVs, or rather new TVs, with full-fledged 4K resolution. What's the price point? $2,999 for the 60-inch and $4,499 for the 70-inch. So if you want a 4K TV, you can get one for under $3,000 by $1. So if you want to pay $1 less than $3,000, you can get yourself a 60-inch TV, except, oh wait, there's tax, so you are going to pay more than $3,000 for a 60-inch 40K, or rather 40K, oh man, 4K TV. Hooray. But, you know, that's getting into materialism. And you know what's kind of not materialistic at all? It's local economy, right? Because it's all about helping the fellow man, providing a product that people can actually use. And if it doesn't work, then the free market's going to kill it. That's what's great about it. There's no forced working by the government where, like GM, you know, they were going to crash. But wait, it's an American car company. We have to bail them out. Cash for clunkers. It was a mess. So you know who's against that sort of thing? It's David Toulis and me. And you can listen to his show coming up in just a few minutes, actually, right after, I should say, CBS Radio News, bringing you the latest world headlines right here at Hot News Talk Radio and hotnewstalkradio.com. Nuganomics.com with David Toulis is coming up right next in just a few minutes, where he talks about local economy and free markets. So I'll see you next day, tomorrow. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one, guys. Wow.